Hi everybody, welcome to or back to the channel. Today we are going back to historical fiction world, and wow. This one stayed with me, still has stayed with me. This one is The Lies They Told by Ellen Marie Wiseman. She has written several historical novels. She's also the author of The Lost Girls of Willowbrook, if that's one that you are familiar with. That's also one that we'll talk about on the channel here at some point in time. But holy moly, this one was a journey. Like I said, this one definitely makes you think about things. It was heartbreaking and tragic and heartwarming at the same time, and all of the feels in this one. There's a lot to unpack here. So this book, honestly, I was drawn to initially because it was talking about what happened after World War I and what happened to people who were coming into the country through Ellis Island after World War I had finished, especially the German immigrants who were coming through. And that was just not a part of history that I had read a lot about. You hear a lot of history about World War II and the things that happened after World War II, but not as much about World War I and that entire kind of flood of immigrants that came through as well. So that's where we start our story. Our main character is Lena, and she is coming to the country with her mother and her brother and her daughter, Ella. Now, above all, she is desperately trying to protect her daughter. She's 2 years old. She's just basically a baby, and this is an extremely stressful situation, them coming over and just hoping they're going to be let into the country. Now, there's a scene that she talks about it, they're literally starving on this boat and people are sick, and she has a little piece of cheese that she gives to her daughter because her daughter is starving and she has no food herself. I mean, just like the basic, just the basic necessities. It's just rough to listen about or to read about, a child that is just screaming from hunger. And I know that this happens. I'm not naive to that, but it was just the way that it was described. It was just like, you're heartbroken for Ella, you're heartbroken for Lena, that this is just such a tough journey for them. So she's trying to help her mother and her brother pass through immigration, but they very quickly get separated. And as you read about what that immigration process was, they were looking for reasons to send people back to Germany. And, again, they were already on the long journey. A lot of these people had given everything up that they had, or they didn't have anything to go back to begin with because of the war and all of the fallout from that. And so they were already sick. Now they're being sent back on a ship where a lot of people were dying on the ship. They never made the journey to begin with. And then if they ended up back at home, again, like, what were they even returning home to? So it was very tough. And the reasons that they were sending people back or just brutal to read. They were looking for people to be feeble-minded. That was a big theme of the time, when in fact there was a language barrier. And so if they were, the immigration officers or the inspectors were asking questions of these people, half the time they were not understanding what they were asking. It wasn't that they were feeble-minded, they just didn't understand what they were being asked. So that was a tough read. Lena was trying to help translate that for both her mother and her brother, and had very mixed results and success. She also knew that, having a child, that could be seen as a liability because now you have a baby that you're bringing over as well. So, there's all of these layers of complication. And on top of that, she is an unwed mother. So again, especially at that time, not something that was a positive for her. She has to lie about the fact that her husband died. Don't even get me started on where is he in the mix, and she's going through all this by herself. That's a whole other conversation for another time. But it's just extremely tough. Being in a country you know nothing about, trying to protect your child, you don't have any support, and she ends up being separated from her brother and her mother, who both say like, hey, we're going to find a way back to each other, but right now you need to go forward to America. If they're going to let you through with Ella, you go forward with Ella, and we'll join you as soon as we can. So she's kind of stuck between this horrible decision, rock and a hard place, but she has to protect her daughter above all else in the mix. So that's what the plan is. She's trying to find a way to stay connected to her mother and her brother. They were planning on going to the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia to meet a distant cousin, Silas. Now, Silas did not know that they were coming, never mind that they were coming, Lena with her baby, but her brother was supposed to be coming, who could at least, kind of have the strength of a man and this and that. I mean, this is no offense to women by any stretch of the imagination, but they thought that's how they're going to help soften the blow, that he's going to be able to work on the farm and whatnot. And now her brother is not there. And he didn't, I said, cousin Silas, they're coming. Lena is there showing up on his doorstep with a baby. And what do we do now? Now, Silas is having his own struggles because he is trying to raise 2 children on his own. And he is trying to raise them in a time where There was a lot of civil unrest. It was part of the eugenics movement. And, they had the state coming in wanting to take people's land from them simply because they wanted to take people's land from them. And they were looking for reasons to say that they needed to be committed, or that they were unfit parents, or that they weren't following the letter of the law. They were just looking for reasons to try to get these people into trouble so that they could take their land. So that is what Silas is fighting against. And so in a lot of ways, he needs Lena, he needs someone to help with the children, but they're not in the most stable of home situations with everything that is going on with the state. And as we all know, I mean, your home is where your heart is, where your people are, on top of the fact that Lena is trying to adjust in this new country. Now they have this constant threat going on that their home might be taken from them, to the point that the children know that they have to go hide if they see the sheriff come, right? Like, it's just such a rough thing. And I said, Silas is trying to do the best that he can to raise these children on his own in times that were very difficult. And like I said, I mean, of course, it is a historical fiction, so the author took some creative licenses, but this was an actual forced displacement of mountain communities that was happening in the 20s and the 30s, aside from anything that was going on with immigration and the war. But I mean, these themes of immigration and bureaucracy and discrimination, it's just, there's so much to unpack there as far as who is being determined to be unfit, and who has their rights taken away from them, and who has their rights to land taken away from them, and children who are taken away from their parents, and the parents didn't have any say about it. I mean, it's just rough and brutal, and again, both Silas and Lena have the same mindset of, above all else, they're trying to protect their children in a world that they don't have equal rights to do everything that they can to protect their children. So it was a very good read. It was very tough in a lot of places. It was very heartwarming in a lot of places too. But again, and those books stay with you, that open your eyes to something you didn't even realize was something that had happened, and really made me think about, how history has been rewritten over time. And this is something, that happened in America, and why isn't this something that's talked about more, and what the fallout was from that, and why that happened, and how we can try to prevent those things from happening again. So anyway, the lies that they told, these are not lies that necessarily told by Silas or by Lena. So if that gives you a little bit of preview, it was a powerful one for sure. Like I said, this is not going to necessarily just be, a fun beachy read by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely makes you think, and it was very eye-opening for me to learn about a piece of our history that I just honestly didn't know a whole lot about. And like I said, we'll be talking about more of her books on the channel for sure. I think this was a very good starter one, and would love to hear what you think and what your takeaways were if you give it a try.